Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Bad neighbors are sad. Sometimes you have to teach them a lesson, or better yet, send them to jail. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled mom cuts my daughter's rope and goes to jail. When my daughter was 11, the only thing she wanted for her birthday was some heavy-duty rope so she and her brother could play in the woods with it and do things like make tree swings. My husband and I went to Home Depot and bought her something like 15 feet of rope that ended up costing me about $50. We wanted her to have some nice rope. It was an unusual thing for a little girl to ask for her birthday, but we wanted her to be able to use it the way she was imagining, so we didn't mind spending more than we expected getting this rope. At the time, we lived in this enormous planned community that had hundreds of acres of natural areas and parks filled with big old live oaks, so plenty of trees for everyone in the community to enjoy in whatever they pleased. One day, my daughter, our son, and two friends of theirs took the rope to a nearby park and looped it around some tree branches to swing off of. They were minding their own business in the park when this little boy of about 4 approached them, watching them swinging. They asked if he wanted to try, but he said his mom wouldn't let him. They said okay and went back to swinging. Pretty soon the little boy's mom came over and told them they needed to untie the rope and leave the park because her son was too young to swing, and it wasn't fair that he had to watch them have fun while he couldn't. Now, for safety's sake, I trained my kids that they didn't have to do anything that a strange adult told them to do, and if a stranger asked them to do anything, they should give the adult my phone number and tell them to call me. Which is what my daughter did. The entitled mom snorted and said, "I don't need to talk to your mother." She then walked back to where she and some other mothers had been having a picnic and got a small knife and came back and cut my daughter's rope off the tree. My children were terrified that this wacky lady came at them with a knife and cut the rope and came flying home on their bikes extremely upset. When they told me the story, I was so PO'd. I'd been in a car wreck a few weeks prior and had a broken pelvis. I was just to the point where I was able to walk okay using a walker, but I wasn't supposed to be driving yet. But I was so angry I put my walker in my van and drove to the park, looking for the woman my children had described. She was still there and was very smug and not at all sorry. I introduced myself and told her I was the mother of the kids with the rope. She told me the same story my kids had and admitted she'd cut the rope because her son wasn't old enough to swing. I was astounded. I believed what my kids were saying to me, but I'd assumed the mother would spin it that she was worried that my kids were hurting the tree or something. I told her, "You're going to need to pay for that rope you destroyed. That was my daughter's birthday present and you had no right to cut it." She said, "I don't think so. I'm not paying for anything." I wasn't sure what to do at this point, but I asked for her name and address, and she stupidly gave it to me. She kind of laughed and said, "Sure, I'll give you my name. I've got nothing to hide." I hobbled back to my van and went home, seething with anger. I called my husband, and he immediately said, "Call the police," which I did. A policeman came within about 20 minutes since we lived in a pretty small town, and I told him the story. He said, "That's destruction of property. She can't do that." She lived within walking distance of my house, so he drove up there and talked to her and was back within a few minutes saying, "She says she'll pay for the rope now, or you can press charges and I'll arrest her. It's your choice." I was pretty surprised to hear that she could get arrested over destroying $50 worth of rope because that really hadn't occurred to me. I thought maybe she'd get a ticket or something. When it comes to my kids, I'm a mother tiger, and by this point, I wanted this lady to spend a few hours in the county jail, but I didn't want to be unreasonably vindictive either. I asked the cop what he thought I should do, but he said he couldn't make that choice for me. I called my husband again, and he said, "Press charges. You already gave her an opportunity to pay for the rope, and she didn't want to." When I told the cop I wanted to press charges, he smiled and said, "That's the right choice. You gave her a chance to pay." He told me he was going back to her house to arrest her. I assume he did, though I never heard anything further about it. We ended up having to buy my daughter some new rope ourselves, but it was worth it to put that entitled mom in her place. Karma hit her hard. And our second story. If you want to micromanage me, you've just doubled my vacation budget. I took a new job with my company during the pandemic that was 100% work from home, which I was pumped about despite a 20% pay cut. I got an awesome new boss. I'm now a manager myself, I have a healthier working environment, it's a day shift only job, and I didn't have to make my 100-mile round-trip commute every working day in a car that gets crap gas mileage. All that, plus I get to work the office shifts. Office personnel only work Monday through Thursday, but 10 hours per day. So we get 3-day weekends every week. It's been that way since before I was hired. All around win despite less money. The pandemic was awesome for my working life. All good things must come to an end, though. People were getting vaccinated in addition to new cases in my area starting to fall. I can do my job 100% remote, 100% of the time, but being on site makes it 25% easier. My department started coming to work for the 25% of our job that really should be done on site. I have no qualms with that, and I'm happy to be back on site for that since it makes my life easier. That was status quo for a few months. The pandemic has changed many companies permanently in one way or another for better or worse depending on the company. My company elected to set guidelines for working from home or remotely as an option for 50% of the time going forward. This will be the new standard as our company has grown culturally and modernized during the pandemic. My department director said these company standards were on a case-by-case basis, but the director was going to enforce the new 50% maximum remote work standard for everyone unless there are extreme circumstances. It was a completely arbitrary decision that I'm convinced was made only to micromanage employees and empower old traditional-style managers, especially since my department can do 75% of our work from home extremely efficiently and effectively. My trick comes in with my vacation hours and realizing how I can double my destination vacations. Soon after the new work-from-home rules were announced and it was communicated that they would be stringently enforced on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I canceled all my vacation on Mondays and Thursdays and rescheduled all those canceled days on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, following or preceding my already scheduled vacations. I get nearly 5 weeks of vacation per year plus comp time for anything worked over 40 hours. My new supervisor, who's an awesome supervisor, approved all the changes I made the same day. I took off every day I was required to be on site and plan on working remotely on Mondays and Thursdays while extending all 4 of my week-long destination vacations already scheduled by 1 week each. I'm vaccinated and more of a hiker and loner that avoids crowds before people start calling me out for starting to travel this year. I now have 10 weeks of vacation combined with holidays and comp days scheduled away from home in 2021 since earlier this year was so busy and I haven't taken much yet. I still have to work on Mondays and Thursdays, but it's a lot more fun to work from the beach or mountains or jungle or desert or while visiting family for 4 out of 16 days than only being in a given place for 8 days. Travel on Friday, since I already get those off, plus an extra Friday I don't have to take vacation for, plus an extra weekend. Working Mondays and Thursdays also helps me keep up and avoid falling behind, which lets me avoid anxiety on vacation that comes with not working and staying on top of stuff. Yes, I know I'm broken for not being able to enjoy time off. And our next story. Taking revenge on a lazy coworker by going above and beyond. So, a bit of a backstory. I'm a dishwasher at a local restaurant, and one of my coworkers, who I'll be referring to as C from here on out, is habitually lazy. C does their job fine, but they're happy to cut corners at the expense of others. One of C's particular habits is to not scrub the side walls of our sinks, which turns a 30-second scrub and spray into a 5-minute deep clean. On the topic of cleaning, another area that's generally neglected is the storage space for the dish racks, and this is the subject of my petty revenge. On to the story. Today, during closing, I decided that this particular area was a little too dirty. My solution? Move the racks into the drying area for dishes in order to clean said area. Not a big deal, right? It'll take all of about 2 minutes to move them back. Well, yes and no. You see, due to budget constraints, the kitchen is stretched thin, and both me and C are working part-time, and C will be starting at the beginning of lunch service instead of when the restaurant opens. With all the racks in the way, the cooks, who already try to avoid the dish pit, will be avoiding it like the plague, effectively starting C with twice the work and half the time to do it. And our last story. My mother, who didn't raise me, thinks that she's entitled to a mother-in-law suite when I buy a home. Quick backstory. My mother didn't raise me, and her parents did. She's always chosen guys and partying over me and my siblings. This is why CPS has taken all 3 of her kids away. Once I became an adult, joined the military, she'd hit me up every couple months asking me to give her different sums of money. She works, but it's a BS job. Eventually, I asked her why she doesn't get a real job, and her response, because I'd be miserable doing that. Here, I gotta talk crap to people and have fun. That's all good if you can pay your bills, but she can't. She's done the same thing to my sister, who was also in the military. Anyway, I talk to her roughly 3 or 4 times a year. Last week, she was asking me when I finish school where I'll be moving to. I told her I don't know. Her response was, well, wherever you go, you know I need a mother-in-law suite to stay at. My response was, no, you don't. After that, I got bombarded with how my generation doesn't know anything about respect and how I wasn't raised properly. Mind you, I was raised by the same people as her. Also, how my dad wanted an abortion, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. After all that, I said thanks, but I'm still never going to have an in-law suite for you. Well, enjoy your effing life, is the last thing she said to me before hanging up. I'm sure in a couple months she'll call asking for something again. Sorry this is so long. OP, stop trying to raise your mother. At this point, she's a lost cause. You should put her up for adoption. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.